Secretary, whether hiking taxes in this environment, as many prominent Democratic presidential candidates want to do, is the wrong thing at the wrong time. What do you think?
Neil, look, you have to distinguish between the short run and the long run. In the long run, we're pursuing an unsustainable fiscal course in this country. We made a set of policy changes in 2001 to fail to control domestic spending, to launch new entitlements with the Medicare prescription drugs, to have a major defense escalation to finance the war in Iraq, and at the same time to very substantially cut taxes. And so we took a country that was on a sustainable path, that was living within its means, and we put the government in a situation where it wasn't doing that anymore.
Well, we had a recession.
Later,
we had a recession. We had 9/11. We did have some aberrant events.
No, right. We did. Right. It was the right thing to do in 2001 and 2002 to stimulate the economy and pull us out of the recession. But as I urged at the time, as the Democrats in the Congress urged at the time, the right way to do it was to do it on a temporary basis, not a permanent basis, and to provide the tax relief where it would be spent and make a difference in the economy to middle-income families.
But we know the tax. But wait a minute, Senator. We know the tax cuts. We know the tax cuts will create a lot of revenue, right?
No, we don't know that. We don't know that at all, and there's no scientific basis.
Well, sure there's.
For
these
that
deficits are going. No, wait. Now, this isn't a Republican-Democratic thing, sir. The deficits have improved. They're still substantial. You're absolutely right. But you can argue that the cut in taxes provided revenues. You're quite right to cite excessive government spending, of which Republicans and Democrats are both guilty. But I mean, the tax cuts themselves are not the problem.
Neil, you can argue that the moon's made of green cheese. You can argue anything. But there is no serious argument that is put forward by responsible economists to suggest that the increase in tax revenues is the result of the tax cuts. Yes, it is true.
So all the
tax revenues have increased.
No. All the serious economists that are saying that are not serious? All the serious economists are saying these tax cuts created revenues for the government. And Alan Greenspan himself, in his book, who said they created revenues, but that spending was the problem. He's wrong, too?
Alan Greenspan did not suggest that the tax cuts created increased revenues.
He most certainly did.
Alan Greenspan, he did not. He did not, Neil. And if you read his book carefully, you will see that.
He was for creating the revenues and the impetus that came out of those tax cuts. Where he faulted Congress, whereas your fault in Congress, is on spending. And you're quite right. Spending is the bugaboo, right?
I don't know where to start making this argument with you, Neil. If you listen to economists like Martin Feldstein, if you listen to economists like Greg Mankiw, who served on President Bush's Council of Economic Advisors, if you look at economists like Douglas Holtz-Eakin, who advises John McCain and who served in the Bush administration, if you listen to Chairman Greenspan, responsible Republican economists, like Democrats, share the view that tax cuts cost the government revenue.
Let's leave this debate. Let's leave this debate because we don't have much time.
Many of them believe.
We can debate this. I want to ask you this now. If you argue that that was a mistake, that it should have been a short-term type of a stimulus, then in this environment now where all the prominent Democratic presidential candidates want to raise taxes, is this the time to do that?
The proposals with which I'm familiar are carefully crafted to be oriented to the long run, when we simply have no choice but to make fiscal adjustments if our borrowing is to be on a sustainable basis.
So you're for
with respect to the short run, particularly if the economy turns down, that would not be the right moment to seek to increase taxes. But I'm not aware of anyone who is proposing that we raise taxes into a recession. What the candidates are doing is taking a responsible long-term view of our fiscal situation, something that I think, frankly, is rather overdue.
But they're not even long-term, Secretary. I mean, Hillary Clinton has said the first thing she would do is raise taxes in the upper income because she says they have had the benefits of this economic boom and they should share in the consequences and the costs. So her step, she mentions nothing about a recession. She just says as soon as she gets in, taxes are going up on the upper income.
Well, I think I think I'm familiar with what Mrs. Clinton has said, and frankly, I don't think you're describing it accurately. What Mrs.
Do you
Clinton
think she's going to wait for the tax hike for the upper income?
What Mrs. Clinton has said is that we need a different and more responsible fiscal approach in this country. That approach involves a number of elements.
Right.
It does involve revisiting tax cuts to those who have been most fortunate even without the tax cut, but it also involves focused spending on key priorities like health care. It also involves making sure that there is fairness in taxation for those in the middle class.
That I understand,
and
sir.
Certainly,
if she did this immediately, if she became president in 2009, January 20th, 2009, and she hikes taxes on the upper income, at that point, or wants to do it, are you saying that would be a mistake?
You know, you're trying to drive a wedge.
No, I'm not. I just want to know it.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You're trying to drive a wedge where there's none. It would be responsible fiscal policy to time and sequence a budget plan in recognition of what was then economic reality. And if the economy was in decline, it would certainly be the wrong moment to apply a contractionary impulse to the economy.
Okay.
There's no suggestion, and I think I am pretty well informed on this, that any Democratic candidate has made that it would be a good idea to raise taxes into a contractionary economy.
So you think if we have a contractionary economy, the ones who have proposed tax hikes would shelve them because we have a contractionary economy?
They would sequence them appropriately to take effect as the economy expanded. You know, look, we saw this argument before. In 1993, every one of the experts you cite as believing the tax cuts raise revenue and believing other such propositions predicted with absolute confidence that President Clinton's policies would lead to a recession. In fact, they led to the most successful economic expansion that we've had in this country, and the only one we've had in the last